and welcome everyone to the 2018 edition of the Ingram Angle from Washington. I'm telling you, liberals are now using sexual harassment, undoubtedly, beyond the shadow of a doubt, for political ends. And the predictions about the president that were all wrong, that's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, before we get to our main topic, it's a new year, and signs of progress made by the president and his administration are everywhere. They're like blooming. It's like springtime. A little cold for that, but remember a year ago about when the liberal prophets of doom were predicting that a Trump presidency would tank the stock market, kill jobs, and mark America's retreat from the world? Boy, were they wrong. And a year later, even the New York Times is grudgingly admitting that due to Trump's regulatory rollback, business leaders are now awash in a wave of optimism, manifesting in, quote, investment in new plants, equipment, and factory upgrades that bolster economic growth. Hallelujah. Well, forecasters are now readjusting their projections for the year upward. Good. It doesn't always seem like it's downward, but this is now upward with Trump. And today's Wall Street Journal, above the fold, reported that wages are rising double the national average in areas with some low unemployment. After years of stagnant wages, cities like Denver, Minneapolis, Fort Myers, and Austin are seeing paychecks start to swell. That's really good news. Here's my prediction. As Trump policies and the tax cuts settle into the country, our economic news is only going to get brighter in 2018. It's only 2 days in, and it truly already feels like a Happy New Year. But now to the latest sexual harassment opportunism coming out of Hollywood. To great fanfare, they got star treatment in all the magazines, newspapers. A group of 300 female power players in Hollywood announced what they're calling the Time's Up initiative. It's an effort to fight sexual harassment and other gender issues across the country and in the entertainment industry itself. Now, it's awfully convenient that these powerful women, many of whom knew for years about the exploits of Harvey Weinstein and others like him, are now seeking to cleanse themselves from any guilt by association with this type of grand rollout and gesture. But beneath the girl power platitudes and the recruiting of Anita Hill to write up a blueprint to end Hollywood sexual harassment, it's something, all of this feels just like another leftist political hack group. Like it's almost like a political action committee. And at the heart of the Time's Up group is a legal defense fund. You're seeing some of the photos with a $13 million war chest that's going to be used to litigate harassment claims. And donors to fund this? Meryl Streep, Reese Witherspoon, Steven Spielberg, and other Hillary backers, and by the way, several talent agencies, well, under duress, no doubt. It's kind of like what Jesse Jackson used to do with his Operation Push. Well, the defense fund is being led by Tina Chen. As far as I can tell, her only previous claim to fame was that she was chief of staff to, wait for it, Michelle Obama. The whole effort is being overseen by the National Women's Law Center's Legal Network for Gender Equality. That's a mouthful. But this legal network was just created last October, according to the CEO, Fatima Graves. She told the Huffington Post that the group was founded in response to the Trump presidency's, quote, all-out assault on women's rights. Oh, so I'm sure conservative harassment victims will feel very welcome and protected there. Let's be clear what this is all about. This is not just some beneficent effort to protect women, although the trappings of it are there. This is an obvious and craven attempt by Hollywood leftists to collect email addresses and other information and organize for 2018 and 2020. Time's Up members include Ava Longoria, Natalie Portman, Rashida Jones, Kerry Washington, and others who have issued, I think, a hilarious challenge. Now, this is the big sacrifice they're asking of women. At the Golden Globes on Sunday, I know you're all going to be watching intently, women are being asked to wear black and use the red carpet to argue for racial and gender equality. Black. Well, black is kind of classic, but it's also can be kind of depressing. But then again, you think about it, given the fact that their entire box office was dependent on the 40-year-old franchise of Star Wars and a 76-year-old Wonder Woman, well, perhaps the color of mourning is indeed appropriate.
Women are paraded down the red carpet. They're expected to look beautiful, to smile, usually not to say much, et cetera, et cetera. So what Eva Longoria said to my colleague Cara Buckley in the paper, in the story that was published yesterday, is she said, we're not willing to just be ornaments this year. We're not willing to go out and sell this award show without asking any of the big questions about power in Hollywood.
Don't you just want to tune in? Well, maybe this is a kind of a blatant attempt to drive up Golden Globe sagging ratings. They keep going down year after year, but I'm not sure it's even going to work. By the way, many of these women are the same women who have made millions of dollars flaunting their bodies for anyone who cares to watch. And at times, you've been watching these award shows. There's some talented people there, some beautiful folks, women and men. But at times, the dresses seem to be defying the laws of physics, right? It's a double-sided tape. How do they keep that up? For a while, it was almost as if Hollywood was creating a new category. And accepting on behalf of, for the deepest neckline is, well, I mean, you can wear whatever you want, but then don't be shocked when people, including men, stare. It's going to happen. Now, these same people, producers, writers, directors, agents, and actors, who have objectified women, and in some cases themselves, they're suddenly the moral conscience of the entire country, not just the entertainment industry, and they're going to safeguard women across the country? Well, what are we going to believe? That they're looking like, what, pilgrims this award season? What are they going to be wearing? Oh, okay. Oh, that's actually a good look on her. Perhaps a Little House on the Prairie collection will be making its premiere at the Golden Globes. What are you wearing? Laura Ingalls Wilder? Well, look, don't hold your breath. You know who's going to do more to help women than anyone else this year, by the way? They won't admit it. But I'll tell you who. Yeah, there he is, Donald Trump. An improving economy is good for all Americans, including women entrepreneurs. Remember, women are half the workforce, if not more, in certain parts of the country. They need a growing economy, wages going up, optimism, confidence. So the Hollywood crowd, they're great at stomping their feet and fundraising for liberal causes. But if they really cared about their industry, well, they'd stop hypersexualizing women and young people. And until they do, their audience will continue to flee and seek safe harbor elsewhere. In other words, Hollywood, time's up. And that's the angle. Joining me now for reaction in New York is Monica Crowley, who is a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, and also in New York is Julie Alvin. She's the digital director of lifestyle titles at Time Inc. All right, Julie, I said a lot in that angle, so tell me what I got wrong. Correct me, tutor me, Julie. Go ahead.
Frankly, I think it's almost bizarre that you believe that this is some sort of liberal conspiracy constructed to, collect email addresses to campaign for 2018. These women are standing up not just for people in their industry, but they're standing up specifically in this letter for women who are unable to speak up for themselves, women who are in low-paying jobs, who are farm workers, who are working at hospitals, who are working in hospitality, who are working in hotels, at restaurants, women who do not have the funds, don't have the platform to talk about sexual harassment, but who do experience large amounts of sexual harassment. They're connecting these women with legal experts. They're connecting them with money. They're laboring and lobbying organizations for legislation that helps people speak out against this, that penalizes places that use non-disclosure agreements to silence women who've been victims of sexual abuse. So I'm honestly confused on why you seem to think
confused?
This is this nefarious project. I think that it's something that is good for women. So the National Women's
Law Center, that very long title that's kind of at the core of this effort, it was just started in October, and one of the core mission statements of this group is focused on Donald Trump. You don't think that lends some political taint to the otherwise, laudable goal of protecting women in the workforce? This from an industry that has made millions and millions of dollars hypersexualizing women, taking advantage of young women who are naive and frankly ignorant of the way men could be and are oftentimes in the workplace. Now suddenly they get millions of dollars for an organization that's populated by all liberal actresses, as far as I can tell. And we're supposed to believe, oh, they've just found their moral conscience on this? I mean, it doesn't even pass a straight face test. Not bizarre. It's totally logical that that's what this group would be about when they focused on Trump right in the beginning.
I think that this is, the things that you point out about this industry, hypersexualizing women and treating women poorly and putting images of women out there that's sort of unsavory. I think that's exactly what part of this initiative is trying to address. So, 80% of board members in Hollywood are men, 96% of directors are men, 71% of writers in Hollywood are men. And when these stories that do objectify women are largely being told by men, I think part of what this initiative is doing, especially with the part of the initiative that's trying to find gender parity.
These stories aren't just being told by men. Women write their own stories. Women write their own stories about what roles they take, what they're going to do.
96% of the directors are men, so I would say that's not true.
Let's go to Monica. I got to get to Monica. Monica, look, when they have a group called 50-50 for gender parity by 2020. 2020 is a presidential election year. I don't think it takes a genius to figure out that there might be more than just a philanthropic goal here behind this effort. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Laura, this looks like the latest mobilization of Saul Alinsky's phrase, never let a good crisis go to waste. The sexual harassment crisis is real. Women do suffer at the hands of superiors and men across every industry, as we have seen. But what we have just seen here in the last couple of weeks, and certainly with these latest two groups, is an effort by the left to take this genuine crisis and hijack it into two directions. One, in this liberal left-wing direction, and more specifically, to have women that now supplant men in positions of power and authority. If women genuinely deserve those positions, more power to them. But if they don't, if this is just going to amount to yet another quota system, then we have a problem. The other direction that this is being mobilized in, Laura, is the direction of Donald Trump. In many ways, the accusers of Donald Trump in late October of last year, right before the election, that in a way was ahead of its time, right before the Harvey Weinstein story broke all of this wide open. What they want to do is make those accusers relevant again. They are going to try to reanimate this whole thing in order to target Donald Trump.
This is about Trump. Monica and Joe.
I think you guys are the only ones trying to politicize this.
Guys, we got to get into another issue, and I want to explore something else with you and show you how this type of thing can manifest itself. That big dollars being raised, big bucks being dedicated to derailing the Trump presidency is what I'm saying about with this charges of sexual misconduct. This happened shortly before the election. On New Year's Eve, the New York Times reported that Hillary Clinton backers David Brock and Susie Tompkins Bell gave $700,000 to Lisa Bloom's law firm. Now, that money was to support any woman who would come forward with allegations against candidate Trump, but not one woman took the offer. What does that tell you, Julie? Is there any political taint with that money coming from Hillary's good friend, David Brock?
I understand where you're coming from in this. I certainly don't like the idea of exploiting or specifically going after digging up that sort of dirt in order to, for political means. That said, it's not like this money was supposed to go directly towards those people who potentially may be making accusations. This was money to go towards relocation expenses, towards legal fees, towards concrete things like that. And, again, I don't like the idea of sort of trying to dig and potentially exploit people who have legitimately been sexually harassed or abused. But there is evidence that, there have been lots of allegations against Donald Trump for sexual harassment. He's spoken openly himself about touching women in a sexual manner without their consent. And so there's concern there. There's smoke. And I think that, there are women out there who have been mistreated by Donald Trump. And I think that our country deserves to know about that.
So David Brock is a longtime pal of Hillary's, runs all these, groups that support Hillary Clinton and others. He was at one time a conservative. He wrote a book exposing Anita Hill. And now it's pretty ironic, is it not, Monica, that Anita Hill is brought in by Hollywood to oversee this effort to, I guess, expunge all sexual bias from Hollywood, or at least try to. I agree with you, Monica, what you said. There are men in positions of power abuse their positions and take advantage of young women especially who need an opportunity. There is also a political element running right through this, as most of the people recently accused, most, not all, have been people on the left. And that's just a fact. And all these Hollywood people who have been accused, I don't think there's one. Is there one conservative? I don't know, maybe there's one or two people, but most of these people happen to be Democrats. That's another reason I think this movement has been broadened out leading up to 2020. You can close it out.
Well, in this story on Brock and this money that went into Lisa Bloom's firm, Lisa Bloom, the so-called champion of women and women's rights, right? We are seeing a weaponization of sexual harassment, which I think is a genuine tragedy, Laura, because there are real cases. And the real women who have been victimized by this kind of bad behavior are now going to have their credibility fall into greater question, whether or not Lisa Bloom or some of these other political activists are by their side. And that's the real tragedy here.
All right, ladies. And by the way, CNN ended the year on this ridiculous high note. Hannity alluded it to earlier. A reporter marveling about the ways to get legally high in a pot den. You guys see that? And I'm taking heat. By the way, I'm taking heat from the media after calling them all out. This one is one you're going to want to stick around to. Stay there.